Hello everybody, in this video I have some mixed media card making to share with you using the Mintay Papers Lady paper pack in the hopes of catching you before you click off because you're not interested in card making. I have said it before and I will say it again, it doesn't really matter if you're not interested in card making because the ideas, the techniques and all the different things like that, they don't have to be done on cards. You can apply it to art journaling, mixed media altered, mixed media canvas, anything really, scrapbooking. Yes, all of the things. You don't have to be interested in card making. It's just a surface on which to make mixed media art, basically. Then again, if you're not interested in card making, you probably haven't clicked on the video anyway, so I am just speaking into the void, and the rest of you are going, shut up, Grace, and just get on with it. Okay, I'll do that. So I chose my main paper that I wanted to work with. I've done what I've usually done and cut a 5x7 card base or card blank, use the remainder of that cut off bit of paper to have a sort of a 5x5 piece, and then use the top of the other sort of remainder of paper to create a sort of, it's not quite an official slimline card because those are 3.5x8, it's more 3.5x7, but you know, roughly the same size. It works out well for making 3 cards, 3 different sizes, and then you also have a bit left over of the 12x12 paper to use for backing and sentiments and all that kind of thing. So I'm going to start off these. I actually started off adding a layer of clear gesso. I was using my silicone spatula thing, the things that are designed for makeup, but they're actually super, super handy for crafts. I use that to apply the clear gesso because it means you don't get any brush lines or brush marks. It makes a much nicer surface. And then when that was dry, I'm going to add a load of stamping and embossing. I'm starting off with that music-y theme stamp, which I bought from Craft Stash, I believe, and using the Lindy's Don't Scream Aquamarine, say that 10 times fast, embossing powder, and that's the 2-tone really chunky embossing powder. Speaking of which, now that Thompson's Craft Supplies has closed down, I don't know where to get my Lindy's supplies from. So if you have any tips on Lindy's supplies in the UK, pop it in the comments because I need a new Lindy's dealer, as it were. Anyways, after doing the music theme stamping, I'm also got this sort of doily lace edge stamp from Kaisercraft, and I'm stamping that on each card and just using a creamy white embossing powder for that one. And I think it looks really, really pretty on these cards, and it matches the whole aesthetic of the cards really, really nicely. Obviously there's a very shabby, chic overall theme to these cards, but the addition of the green makes them somewhat different. You don't see a lot of green generally in scrapbooking and card making and general paper crafts, blah blah blah, and I just really love these papers for that bold, rich, very sort of what's the word I'm looking for, like a royal green, if you know what I mean. Oh, I made a little rhyme. Anyway, with all my stamping and embossing done, I'm just going to distress the edges of each piece with that's the Dovecraft Distress tool. And then I'm going to start adding some Crackle Paste. It's the Distress Tim Holtz Crackle Paste, but I'm not using a stencil. I'm just using my palette knife, had a blank there, plastic palette knife, just to scrape it around the edges in clumps, as it were. It gives that distressed effect around the edges, a very shabby chicy sort of feel, as I said, and I'm just kind of scraping that on. Makes me feel very arty doing that without a stencil. I'm like, oh, look at me, I'm a proper artist, not using a stencil. But anyway, yeah, right at the very, very edges, trying to find that balance between having it not too thick and bulky, because sometimes when it's Crackle Paste is really thick and bulky, it's more likely to start flaking off and falling off. But also if you do it too thin, you don't get a great crackle. So as I said, trying to find the balance between those two things. And I keep going back and forth between each of the card blanks to add a little bit more here and there, and I think this is the last little bit I do once I'm finally happy with those. Set those aside to dry, because Crackle Paste you need to dry it naturally rather than with a heat tool, and I pulled out some bits to do some fussy cutting with. I'm just showing you there, I've cut some bits from the Mintay Fussy Cutting books, Flora book 1 and 2 and the Frames book, and I also fussy cut a load of flowers from the Lady paper pack as well. Once all that fussy cutting was done and the Crackle Paste was dry, here I am going in with Distress Oxide Spray in Victorian Velvet and just using it as a paint with my paintbrush. Obviously I shake it up first to mix the pigment and everything, and I'm using that to colour that Crackle Paste. Doesn't completely colour it, you still get some of that white shining through, but I think it just looks a little bit better with that pinky tone to it. As you see, I add a little bit of water occasionally to help the colour flow a bit more naturally, and I keep going in adding a little bit more colour in certain areas, so it's more pigmented in one area and it's almost white in another area. Adds to the whole distressed feel if you do that, and here I am drying that. After that, it was time to start building up all my embellishments and the clusters and all the shapes and stuff that I'm going to have on each card. That large grey frame I've cut into two, as you can see, so there's just a tiny little bit of it to use on the slimline card and a larger bit of it to use on the square card. Those two ovals I'm playing with, those are both cut from the 3x4 cut aparts from the Lady paper pack, but obviously I haven't cut the 3x4 card as it is. I've fussy cut the shape within the card as well. I decided on the larger card it would be nice to have some extra texture, so I'm taking some lace ribbon and some, oh, what do you call the wiggly woggly ribbon? Is it rickrack? I'm fairly sure it's rickrack, and white rickrack there. Just simply gluing it around the back. It's not glued at the front at all, so it's kind of loose on the front, and I think that adds a lovely texture to the whole thing. I'm going to add the oval on top of those and add all the florals and pretty bits after that. I decided to add a piece of foam behind the oval just to raise it up even more because it's going to have the flowers behind it, and I thought it would look better to have the oval up at the top layer, the flowers behind, and then you have the lace and stuff, so it's not all on the same level. It adds more dimension and interest to the whole thing in general. And here I am picking out various little floral fussy cut clusters, there we go, going around the edges with absolutely everything in this video with Distress Oxide in Tattered Rose. So if you see me going around the edges of something, it's Tattered Rose throughout the whole video, so hopefully I will not need to say it again. And yeah, simply adding the different floral embellishments around and slightly on top of that oval. Obviously the oval is going to be my focal point where I'm going to add the sentiment and stuff. Going to the slimline card here, thought about adding the rickrack but decided against it. Didn't work as well on this card. I can't explain why, it simply didn't work as well. But I thought adding that little piece of frame would look nice, adding that slight depth of colour, that darker colour. And I'm doing the same thing here. I've got my fussy cut bits and pieces. I'm just arranging those where I want them, but my oval I'm going to raise up on a bit of foam so it sticks out from all those lovely flowers and other embellishments that I'm going to come back and add a little bit later on. A lot of the leaves that I've cut are from one of the fussy cutting books rather than the paper pack itself, but I think they really make a difference as well. They break up the pink of all those florals. And while I'm doing this, I am going back and forth between cards. You know, like one catches my eye and I think, oh, I'm just going to add that little leaf there. And I look at another one in the corner of my eye and think, oh, I think I need little rose there. So it's constant between the three cards. I try and concentrate on one at a time, but it doesn't always happen. For the square card, as you see, I have that larger piece of the grey frame. I'm going to pop that up, as you see, on some thinner pieces of foam so the whole thing is up on the same level. And I'm going to have the fussy cut florals both on top and underneath that, and I think that looks really nice. Like this fussy cut piece I'm putting there, you've got the rose underneath and the leaf coming out from at the top. I don't know, I just think it looks really, really nice like that. So I played around with those for quite some time, under, over, which one's going to go where sort of thing. It took some time. I never know when I film and edit these bits, like to what extent do you want to see me do the same thing over and over again, because I'm kind of doing the same thing but I'm doing it on a different card and it is kind of different. But when it comes to the voiceover, I'm kind of repeating myself, so I never quite know what to do at this point. Maybe I should just shut up and put music over it. I don't know, but I can't be bothered to do that today. I do come back and add something different to this card though, but I'm finishing off with a few little leaves and florals first, and there you go, going back to another card, adding a few little bits. Decided the largest card needed some more leafy bits, so adding two of those, and then once those are down, I can't remember if it's butterflies, oh no. So I had stamped and embossed the sentiments. That is on the reverse side of the paper that I had used for the card blanks. You know, the leftover bit. So I've stamped and embossed those in that same creamy white colour I'd used earlier. It looks so perfect on that green colour, I think. And I'd also fussy cut this mannequin with a green dress on. This particular card was for my niece for her birthday, and I felt the dress was just needed. I think it looks fine and perfect without, but there was something about the dress, you know, pretty dress for my teenage niece. I don't know, something like that. That's just where my mind ended up. But each of those little green sentiments, I'm taking a gold ink pad and just going around the edges, just helps it stand out a little bit, brings in that sort of luscious goldy colour. Often I will stick sentiments on foam to help them stand out a little bit, but I didn't think it was necessary with these cards on that really strong green colour. They didn't need help standing out at all. Here I'm going through the Tim Holtz Acetate wings and choosing some various bits to put on my cards. I mean, in hindsight, looking at them, I don't think the butterflies were actually necessary, but I love putting butterflies on things, so there we go. I actually spent ages and ages deciding which butterflies and which sets of wings to put on these cards. I cannot tell you. It got to the point where I went, you know what, I don't care, I'm just choosing whichever ones because I'm overthinking this way too much. I often, with these acetate wings, I will put a little dot of hot glue in the center and then press it down with my finger in the center of the butterfly and hold it there for a second, and it causes the wings to kind of fold in on themselves a little bit so they look more dimensional, like they're in flight sort of thing. I think it looks so much prettier. Obviously be careful when you're pressing down where the hot glue gun is so you don't burn your hands. I know lots of us by this point have kind of got calloused hands from hot glue anyway, but there we go. Here I'm, last thing here, finishing off with some Nouveau drops. Of course, the colours I am using, these are vintage drops in Emerald Isle. I love the green of this colour. It's a slightly different tone of green to what's on the card, but I think it matches really, really nicely. And this is normal Nouveau drops in Caramel Cream. Again, it's not white, it's not gold, it's not brown. It simply looks really, really nice for the whole thing together. And there are the 3 cards. I probably should have said at some point I did put the card bases on some card blanks, but you don't need to see me do that. And there we go, 3 finished cards. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please leave me a thumbs up, chat to me in the comments. Links as always in the description, apart from, and I realise this is super annoying, but I don't have a link for the Mintay Lady papers at this time, because now that Thompson's Craft Supplies has closed, I don't know where to get Mintay from in the UK anymore. So if you do know, please let me know in the comments. That would be so super helpful. I do know that Craftelier / Craftelier, however you say it, are stocking Mintay now, but for various reasons I don't purchase from that shop anymore. So anywhere else that does Mintay would be so helpful if you know. Thank you so much. But other things, paints, sprays, Nouveau drops, all that sort of thing will be in the description box. As I've already said, thank you so much for watching. And yep, I am now going. Thank you so much again. Bye bye!